Well, from let's bring in Jean-François Di Meglio. He's the president of the Asia Center and a professor at the Paris-Dauphine University. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Let's begin with these latest military drills. Do you think this level of reaction was what the international community was expecting, what the U.S. was expecting, what you were expecting?
Well, it's 100% consistent with what China wanted to do and also announced, even though it's just a notch below what Xi Jinping announced before Nancy Pelosi's trip. Because before Nancy Pelosi's trip, in order to prevent this trip to happen, Xi Jinping's administration and he himself said that it will be fire and threats to Taiwan. So what we can see is military drills, probably the highest level of military drills we have witnessed in the latest years. This is probably the beginning of an escalation vis-à-vis Taiwan, but those are only military drills because this is all China can do at this juncture.
Let's talk about what we can expect in the next few days, weeks, and months. How long do you expect this tension to last? Aside from China, what can anyone else to bring this tension down to a lower level?
Well, a third party would be very, very difficult to introduce in what happens to be a dialogue or an absence of dialogue between US and China, because there is no third party. Even UN is not even a decent third party in these talks. It might happen, but the reality is that US and China are highly interdependent. So we have probably a few cycles ahead of us. This is the apex of, I would say, a crisis cycle. The crisis will probably dampen in a few weeks or months because US needs China and China probably even more now because China is in a very difficult situation currently, both on the economic side and diplomatic side. China needs the US. What is very interesting in what you said just before is that China in some ways is showing possibly its true face on the environment issues. China has used the environment and climate talks as an excuse or a pretext to say that it was really deliberately involving itself into multilateral talks. And the fact that on the key issue on the planet, which is the climate issue, China is voluntarily withdrawing. This is extremely telling about how much China cares about multilateralism.
Are you implying that China was waiting for an excuse to basically lessen its commitment when it comes to climate change?
Well, sorry if you heard it this way. My point is that it's not an excuse, but it's a very good tool to be used to go into or get out of multilateralism. This is only a tool. China is instrumentalizing the climate talks and using it not to improve its climate situation, but just to show its will or its absence of willingness to be involved in multilateralism.
And speaking of the retraction of China from that multilateralism in terms of climate change defense cooperation, how important has China's role been in those areas so far?
It's very interesting because China is number 2 GDP in the world. China, in many, many aspects, is number 2 in the world, but China never got to the point where it accepted a G2 governance of the world. Everything is aligned to have China as being a peer to the US and possibly a successor to the US in global governance. So China has involved, yes. China has taken up many positions in international organizations. However, China very, very scarcely takes full responsibility. And we have another demonstration of China not taking its full responsibility. And as you said yourself, taking an excuse to withdraw and not exert its full responsibility.
Oh, we haven't talked yet about Taiwanese politics. What has the president, Tsai Ing-wen, gained from this, if anything at all?
Well, that's a very good question. And if you talk to Taiwan people, and I do talk to Taiwan people, of course, they needed an expression of support from the US But mind you, this expression of support is coming from the House of Representatives, and this is not the executive power. What Taiwan needs, and from the US, but probably from other Western countries and other democracies, is a demonstration of full support by the executive powers. The G7 declaration is very important because in the G7, you also have Japan, you have other countries, of course, you have France, and G7 condemned the action by China. So this is what Taiwan gained in some ways. But concretely speaking, you are absolutely right to ask the question, because at the end of the day, Taiwan needs even more support and even more confidence, more trust into the support by other nations for Taiwan's democracy and not, mind you, Taiwan independence. At no point did Nancy Pelosi or whoever supported Taiwan independence, which is exactly what China resents to, because China pretends that this is in favor of Taiwan independence. That's not the case. The one China policy remains the rule for US, for France, for G7. It's something different. It's support to Taiwan that Taiwan still needs and which Nancy Pelosi brought in a way, but is not yet sufficient for Taiwan to be fully confident.
Jean-François Di Meglio, thank you very much for that. You are the president of the Asia Center and a professor at the Paris Dauphine University. We appreciate your input and your analysis.
Thank you.